Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night for those who are listening. I am Dr. Waynette Turner, and this is Way Turner Podcast. We are so excited that you have tuned in and joined us for another episode of our podcast. I am excited as I am each time I get an opportunity to have a guest on our podcast. I think I'm doubly excited today because I love this sister so dearly. And I am going to introduce her in a few moments, but I want to tell you a little bit about our podcast. So, Motivated to Purpose is the name of the podcast, and it is a transformative podcast. It's designed to provide coaching, it's designed to provide counseling, and most of all, motivation to individuals so that they can fulfill their potential in life. So, again, we are so excited that you decided to join us today. And our special guest today is Dr. Apostle LaTrice Williams. I am so excited to have you here with us today. Before I ask you to speak, I just want to tell the people a little bit about you. There is so much, it's so robust. So I hope I can do it some semblance of justice. And so Dr. LaTrice is the founder of Divine Grace Ministries International and also Divine Connection Covenant Fellowship, and where she and her team provide spiritual covering and mentorship nationwide. She is also the lead of LaTrice Williams Global Ministries, which is also a leadership development program designed to train and mentor new leaders. And praise the Lord for that. If that's not enough, Dr. LaTrice Williams is the visionary behind the No More Drama experience. And as I was reading, and I just remember being a participant in the No More Drama experience, and that was such an amazing time. Also, the Move Virtual Empowerment Summit, and I know that's something that's coming up because I've seen some advertisement regarding that. And these are two transformative gatherings designed to provide healing and empowerment to not only leaders but the community at large. Whoo, I'm tired already. But if that was not, if that is not enough, she is also the CEO of Living with More Enterprises, where she offers publishing services, design solutions, and leadership training for those who in that market as well. Um, and to top all of that off, if that was not enough, to top all of that off, she is an Amazon International best-selling author of 8 books and 4 journals, with the latest being the God's Agenda. Yes, and I am so excited about that, and just amazed at just the work that she has done. And I have my God's agenda. I have mine. I have mine. And I will have a question about this because I've been reading the God's agenda. So I'm going to have a question about some writing in the journal. So welcome, Dr. LaTrice Williams.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Listen, every time I hear those things read out of that Bible, I'm like, are they talking about me? But God is so faithful. He is so faithful. Thank you so much for having me. This is a complete honor. Very humbled to be here, and I can't wait to dig into this conversation today. But all I can say is God is faithful. Everything that you said about me is only by His grace. So thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. We are delighted to have you on the podcast. And so yeah, let's just delve in because yes, I'm excited about learning more and allowing the audience to experience you in another way. Yes, that's
Amen.
so
Amen.
so so amazing. So tell us about, I know your life is so robust. And so even as I was working on, oh, hey, I want to get to the pieces, the nuggets that are going to really be helpful to those that are listening. So three experiences that you felt that has prepared you for this amazing work and this amazing journey that you are on. Tell us a little bit about that. And please don't just start with the three experiences. Give us some context.
Okay, so in context, so I'll give you my three experiences first. I would say my life experiences, and I'm going to give you context about that. Growing up around ministry and being active in church, that would be my second one, and then being a leader early in life. So let me give you the context. In my life experiences, I was born to a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old. I was the first part of my life. I was raised by my grandmother and my aunt, who I love and miss them so much. Mother Eula May Haynes and Mother Mary Haynes, and they just took me in, loved on me. But in my youth, in my very early youth, I was molested and I was raped by an uncle. And I say my life experiences prepared me for ministry because that experience, it traumatized me for a very long time in my life. And so how it prepared me is that I had to walk through a healing process. I had to walk through a deliverance process because the experience of that, it planted some seeds, and it deposited some things in me that had to be uprooted. And so now I'm able to see people who have been through those type of life traumas, and I don't immediately judge them harshly. I know now to look at them and say, okay, this is a product, or this comes from or stems from the root of what they've lived through. And sometimes when you have not lived through it or you have not experienced it, you don't know how to really minister to that person in a way that will take them to their breakthrough. So that's a little bit of context behind that. I thank God for healing and deliverance, but I was well into my 20s, almost 30s, when I truly broke free of all of the things that were surrounding that part. And then also I was pretty much abandoned by my birth mother and my birth father. So that's another life experience. And what God taught me through that, he taught me through my grandmother, Mother Eula May, and my aunt. And then there was my beautiful mother that he gave me. And when I was age 12, her name is Linda Ann Leaks. She was my mom from the age of 12 until she left this earth 2 years ago. And what God taught me is that God will give you everybody that you need. And sometimes you will be the person that somebody needs. I know that probably sounds like, oh, that's so spiritual, but no, I needed them at different junctions of my life. And I didn't recognize what God was doing until it had been done. And I had the opportunity to live long enough to say, oh, that was God. And so it prepared me for ministry because now I can see the lives of people and say, hey, don't miss this that God is doing for you, even though you're in a bad situation, even though all of these traumatic things have happened. Let's shift our perspective and see what God is doing. But until you've lived to be able to see a different perspective, sometimes you can't help other people see one. It prepared me. So those were life experiences. Of course, I grew up in church now. I'm a little church girl. I was a little hood girl. I was a little hood. I was bad to the bone. But I grew up in church and I grew up around ministry. And most people will say, well, that doesn't really prepare you for ministry. Well, this is how it prepared me. It showed me throughout my years of growing up in ministry, not just as a youth, as a teen, as an adult, but it showed me not only what to do, but it showed me what not to do. I experienced some excellent leadership and some horrible leadership. And so it has helped to shape my mindset about what leaders should do and shouldn't do. And it also taught me seek the Lord for how you should lead. Yeah. Not every person can be led the same way from the same level because people grow and they mature at different levels. And when you're a leader, you know what you have to do? Adjust. You have to adjust until they learn how to adjust. You have to be the example. So growing up in church was one of those things that taught me what to do, what not to do. And listen, being in church, being a leader in church is still teaching me today.
Yes, that
is still teaching me today. And then just being a leader in life. I've been a leader in every area of my life. When I was in high school, I was a leader. I was the lead alto, what they call it, the section leader. I was a leader when I worked as a teenager. I was a supervisor at work. I've always been a supervisor in different jobs. And if I didn't start out as one, somehow God would just advance me to one. And that's in the marketplace area. In church, I was always a leader, and so every area of my life, there was a point in my life when I had my younger sisters and brothers. And I was like their mom. I was I was feeding them and clothing them and taking them to school and doing all the things. And so I've been a leader in some way, shape, form all my life. And I had to learn as I went. I didn't get a sit down class and say, this is what leadership is and this is how it goes. I just had to learn the ins and outs. And that doesn't mean I got it all right. I made some of the worst mistakes in the whole world, but those mistakes taught me too.
Yes, so good.
Yeah.
So I heard you said several just totally amazing things. I heard, the non-judgment in ministry and being non-judgmental and just how important that is in ministry and being able to meet people where they are and to be able to minister to them. I heard, even that stemming out of your own sexual trauma and abandonment. I also heard, you said about, having this village of people that was surrounding you that you had and being able to pull on those people that were around you, right? Because I think about oftentimes we have this idea of what our family needs to be, and if they're not that, then we still trying to hold on to what we think they're supposed to be, as opposed to really, hey, what do I have? And let me use those people that are in places that, maybe mentors, maybe mother figures, maybe father figures, uncles, and being able to really just use those people, because you said, hey, God has given you what you need. It's just a matter of us being able to go and, hey, there she is, or there he is.
And be able to accept them.
Yeah.
Because what child doesn't want their mom? What child doesn't want their dad? And I remember the feelings of rejection, and I think I even made a note to talk about that, rejection and abandonment. But accepting who God sent as my family has healed and has helped me in such a great way that when people say, oh, well, tell me about your family, I say I have such an expansive family that God gave me. Do I have blood relatives? Absolutely, I do. I love them, no hard feelings to them. But my family are those people that God brought into my life when life could have gone a totally different way. I could have been doing something completely different, a totally different person, but he staffed my life with people who would help me at just different points in my life to make sure that it didn't go just completely crazy. I still did some dumb stuff now, but he still gave me those people. So absolutely, he gives
Yeah,
you who
and
you need.
I just want to share. I want to reiterate that to our audience for, if you feeling lonely and you don't have people around you, or the people you think you're supposed to have around you, to be able to really pull upon those people that God has placed in your life, that may not necessarily be blood family, but they can be family nonetheless, and even be able to provide maybe a level of care and support that your blood family may not be able to provide for you. And so
You,
I
you
just
know
want to
what?
encourage you in that. Yes.
You know what, Dr. Turner? You may not remember this, but when you all came to No More Drama, my mama Linda, who is not my birth mom. But she came to every No More Drama. She was in the room. Nobody would have ever known that she's not my blood mother. One, because for some reason I look like them. But for two, she never treated me any differently. And you never heard me call her anything but mama or mommy. No, never. And if my birth mother was to walk in the room, people you would never even know. Nobody's really seen her, in my life, showing up. But Mama Linda was there. She was my children's grandmother. They granny. That's the only grandmother that they knew on a grandmother level. Not that they don't know who my birth mother is. They know, who she is, but as a grandmother. And so as you're encouraging the audience, I want to encourage you, please receive the people that God has sent to you, because they will be so much more to you than probably the family that you're craving for them to be. But God has given you the people who can actually do it. And you may not even remember meeting her, but she was in the room. That's just how present she was in my life from the age of 12 until she passed away in 2022.
Well, that is so amazing, and so thank you for sharing that, and just reiterating that, the importance of that to our audience, and because yes, you can find mother, your father figure in so many different places if we
Hmm.
just expand our view or perspective regarding those those people or those roles that we want to have in our lives. And so, oh my goodness, that is so amazing. You were talking about, and I don't know if this kind of rolls into maybe I have a question about coping with three major challenges that you face. But you talked about just a few moments ago about rejection and abandonment. I don't know if that flows in there, but I'm thinking by the Holy Spirit it does.
Absolutely. So I made myself a note. Now, of course, abandonment and rejection is one of those life things that I had to cope with. I didn't cope with it well for a very long time because I was often very triggered. Things will happen and make you feel like you're experiencing something that you've experienced before. It can be totally different, but just because it makes you feel like that. So I had to learn how to identify, is this really happening, or am I being triggered because I'm still unhealed in these places? And so, first of all, I had to acknowledge that I needed some healing. I needed to acknowledge that, yes, I actually did feel rejected. I actually was abandoned. Not acknowledging it to point a finger, but acknowledging it so that I'm not walking around silently carrying this weight and this burden that I no longer had to carry. But because I felt it, I carried the feeling of it. And so I stayed on guard. I'm going to put walls up to try to put. So I use some good coping mechanisms, and there were times I used some bad coping mechanisms. We will use walls of protection. Oh, nobody's ever going to do that to me again. I'm going to protect myself. I'm not going to let anybody in. That's the wrong wall, the wrong coping mechanism, but we do use it sometimes. But I had to learn that I needed some healing. I needed to deal with where the rejection and abandonment came from. It started with my birth parents, but I experienced it throughout other areas of life. I experienced it in church. I experienced it at home. I experienced it in business, just different places. But I had to acknowledge that, okay, these were my experiences. Again, not to point a finger, not because did I want an apology? Sometimes I did, but I also came to realize that everybody doesn't even see what they've done. And they don't understand how it made you feel. And for some people, they were dead and gone. So I couldn't go and tell them. So, okay, LaTrice, you've got to walk through a process of releasing some of these things. One of the things that I did, and I encourage everybody to do this, is journal. Write down how you feel. Listen, get it all out. Pour it out on the pages. You can burn it up when you're done. You can tear it up when you're done. You can mail it to the people if you want to, but do something that allows you to release it. And so you're not playing this constant recorder in your mind all the time. So definitely abandonment and rejection was one of the huge things. Therapy is a blessing. Being able to go and speak to somebody on a clinical level who can help you dig even further into the crevices of where you've been and the experiences you've had. And then, of course, pastoral counsel is good. You need that spiritual counsel as well to help you as you're releasing naturally and you're dealing with the natural side. Okay, let's look at the spiritual implications of what you've experienced. And so those things together helped me. And listen, I can still be triggered today if I'm not careful. And so I say that to say, no matter how healed we get, no matter how delivered we get, keep in mind that the enemy can always attempt to trigger you, and he will do it to try to pull you back. And so we have to stay on guard, but in the right way, not that on guard, I'm not letting anybody in. Another major challenge I faced was divorce. Now, this is something that most people don't like for me to talk about, but I love talking about it. I have been married and divorced 3 times. I got married the first time when I was 19 years old. Needless to say, I had no business getting married at 19. I was not ready. I didn't even really want to be married. But in my mind, I said, well, I'm not going to live in sin, so I'm going to get married. It was years later when the Lord said to me, you do know that the answer was just stop living in sin.
All right.
Just move out and stop living in sin. But I said, no, I got to get it right. I got to get married because this is what the people expect of me. Because again, I grew up in church. I grew up around preachers and teachers, and all of them knew this little girl. So you got to get married. So it didn't work. It didn't work. And most people think that it didn't work because he cheated, and he did. And they don't realize that I cheated first. He just never knew. I'm okay with saying it. I was 19 years old. I was wild. I was out of control. And now I'm like, my God, look at what you're using now. And so I say that to people that say, hey, don't let anybody force you into getting married if you're not ready.
Yes.
Make the decision to live holy and to live righteous for God, but you don't have to get married to do that. I'm not dissuading anybody against marriage, but let it be the decision that God has for you and not the decision that people have made for you. I got married the second time. Do y'all want to know why? Because you're a preacher now, and you can't be unmarried and be a preacher. You're a woman, you're a young woman, you need a husband. That was the most foolish reason for me to get married. And I married the wrong person. I mean, literally had to fight for my life in this marriage. And I was married for a year. Mm-hmm. Now, the third time I got married, I was so in love. And I had all the blinders on. And I was just so excited because, oh, God has finally sent me the right one. And I'm going to get married. And, this is going to be great. We're in ministry. We're going to do ministry together because he was a leader. He was a preacher, a pastor, a bishop, actually. And we were going to get married. And we did. And we got married. And it was the worst decision that I could have ever made in my life. And you know what I learned from all of this? Is that nobody ever told you the Holy Ghost never told you to get married, LaTrice. You let what people thought and how people felt that you should govern your life because you were a preacher and a leader and a prophet. This is what you must have in your life. Now, I had some great experiences in every, except for that second one. All of it was bad. But I had some great experiences. I have my children. They are amazing, grown children now. I have some amazing bonus children from my third husband. He had some older children, and I love them. But it still was the worst decision ever. Now, I made some great friends, and we're still friends to this day from that. But I had to own that, hey, perhaps that's not something that you need to do. And, it was not until my third divorce that I finally learned who LaTrice really is. I mean, LaTrice, the woman. I knew who the prophet was. I know my gift, and I've learned as I'm growing into even more in the apostolic. I understand who the apostle is, but I'm talking about LaTrice, the person.
Yes.
LaTrice, I know who I am now. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. And I know who God has called me to be as his daughter. I didn't even have a chance, just out the gate married. And so I coped with all of those challenges I put a pause on bringing anybody else into my life on that level until unless God said so. He hasn't. And I'm grateful because I actually love single life. And I didn't know that I loved it because I never really had a chance to find out. But I coped with it by first putting a pause on just attaching to people and allowing them to attach to me. I coped with it. Now, I'm not going to say I coped with all of it in the right way. Because listen, that third marriage, y'all, your girl was cussing and fighting and all kinds of things. I wrote a book about that one because that one tried to take me out. But I had to just pause. And I keep saying pause because somebody's about to make a mistake.
Yes.
And somebody's about to enter into something because of what everybody else expects of you, because of who you are and because of what you do. But please pause and let the Lord tell you whether that's what he wants you to do. I feel that very strongly. I had to put a pause on that, and putting a pause on that actually opened up my life to where I am now and what I do now. I couldn't do ministry on the level that I do it now. I can get up and go whenever I want to now. I can come and go and people can call me. I mean, I do have boundaries, but if I was married, it would look very different, right. Because I believe that you got to protect your marriage when you are now. It's amazing, y'all, because I have been married and divorced 3 times, but just about every couple God has sent to me to minister to and to counsel, they're still married and they're still doing well. So he proved to me that married or not, I still have what people need. Right. But he helped me to cope with the shame, with the embarrassment, because it was embarrassing at first. There was a time when I would have never just freely talked about this. But when God heals you, and when he lets you know that, hey, you just did that on your own. You did that without me. And I can admit that, okay, God, I did all of that without you.
Yeah.
And so my coping really was about accepting the reality of what things were and accepting that that's not what God had for me, but I can now live freely in what he does have for me. So I don't know if I'm necessarily coping or if I'm really more like living, living through those challenges versus coping with them.
Yeah. Well,
I hope that helps somebody.
no, I mean, I think, being able to share one, the pause, right? So being able to pause, if you're making some decisions out of what you think people want you to do, or
Mm-hmm.
it's something you just feel you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and really pausing in that place so that you can, you know, maybe choose another route for your life,
Mm-hmm.
for that, whatever that is. And so I do think that, as we live and, even be able to talk about with the challenges we faced in our lives, it is a method of helping us to cope with
Mm-hmm.
those challenges, right? And as you stated, even if God is using you with the very thing that you feel like it wasn't successful for you, then
Mm-hmm.
he's still using you and getting the glory out of that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good. That's so powerful and so rich,
God is
to
so
be
good.
able to share that with the people. And tell me, the abandonment. So in that, can you talk to our audience about feeling abandoned, and give them some encouraging words in that place?
So I've experienced abandonment on several levels, and I feel the presence of the Lord to talk to you about ministry abandonment. Um, I started Divine Grace back in 2009. And of course, it was right when life was kind of turned upside down in the middle of a divorce, well, finishing a divorce, and just a lot of things happening. And it flourished for about a year. We had a very strong online Bible study, and we did all the things. And I just had to stop. I had to stop. It wasn't the people, it was me. And God kept encouraging me to restart, restart, restart. I didn't restart until 2015. 2015, we relaunched. We had three locations when we relaunched: Georgia, Louisiana, North Carolina. Amazing campus pastors who served under me. Well, 2021 came. I'm gonna speed through it. 2021 came, and that's where the abandonment happened. Had a couple of people who just felt like they didn't want to be here anymore. They didn't like my leadership style, and just a lot of different things that were said. And everybody abandoned me. I mean, it was like jump ship. And when I say abandonment, sometimes you got to look at abandonment like this. Not everybody left my covering. Many of them are still here, but everybody went silent. And if you remember the story of Jesus when he was headed to the council, the high council, and all of his disciples had kind of scattered. But then there was that one that he didn't scatter, but he followed behind, but he was still quiet. And then there was Peter who followed behind, but when somebody asked him about how about Jesus, he denied him. So I literally had a Jesus experience. And I was like, wow, okay, God, we say we want to be like you until it's time to experience this. And so that abandonment, it shook my confidence. Most people look at me and they're like, oh my God, you're so powerful and you're so confident in ministry. And I'm like, y'all know what? I'm still rebuilding with God my confidence to know that I have a voice that is meant to train leaders. I have a ministry that is meant to build up and to cultivate and birth out prophets and apostles and the fivefold. But the core of my confidence was shaken to, I mean, I was rattled. And I spent from 2021 to 2023 in a very deep, what most people don't even realize, depression. I would show up because we know how to show up.
Yes.
But I still felt alone. And that's what the abandonment does. It produces this place of loneliness and feeling alone, even when you're surrounded by people.
Yeah.
Now, I say that because I was surrounded by people. I was still leading the church. I was still hosting No More Drama. And the other things that God would have me do, I'm still mentoring. I'm still showing up. But when all of that was done, when I had shown up, when I had prayed, when I had prophesied, when I had just yielded myself to God and all of the things, when it was done, I was just like, now what for me, God? Now what? And I felt like nobody could, and a lot of abandoned people, including me, feel like nobody sees us. It's like, God, I show up for everybody. I'm doing what you tell me to do, but I still don't have what I'm giving out. Why? Because the people who you loved so much and you poured so much into, they walked off and left you based on some lies or based on somebody else being offended because they were corrected or whatever the scenario may be. And so I want to say to those who are experiencing abandonment, check the people who are around you. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. Some of us are surrounded by people, and because we feel what we feel, we really don't realize who God has now put around us. And don't make the people who have stayed with you, don't make them suffer
Suffer.
or
Yeah.
pay for what the people who left did.
Yes.
Don't reject them because somebody rejected you. I was in a bubble for a long time. I was like, okay, I go to minister and I come home. I don't want to talk. I didn't let nobody get close to me. I went through this thing where God was sending people to me, sons and daughters to minister to and to build up and to lead and to cover. And I'm like, God, why do you keep sending these people when you know all they're going to do is lie and leave? When you know all they're going to, and he said, no, that's what the other people did.
Right.
And so I'm sharing that because abandonment will cause you to isolate.
Yes.
Once you're abandoned and you feel alone, your coping mechanism becomes isolation.
Yes.
Don't do that to yourself, and don't push away the people who God is sending literally to heal you in that abandoned place. I remember I had a gathering in my home, and then I'll be done. I had a gathering. I had just had a few people over, and it was very casual. We were eating, and somebody said, Apostle, you want something to drink? And I said, oh, I'll get it. I'll get it. And literally the Holy Spirit said, so you can't even let somebody pour you a glass of lemonade? I mean, I got to a point where I would not allow anybody to do, and you couldn't pick up a pen for me. Because what you weren't going to do is say you did something for a power. I mean, this is real. And so abandonment and rejection, it brings all of that. Once it has been nursed and, you've sat in it and it has just taken a hold of you. And so God began to break that off of me by showing me how I was doing the very thing to people that people had did to me. And I mean, I've been doing it in the same way, but I would not even let this lady fix me. You don't cook this whole meal for the people. You don't opened up your house and you won't even let her pour you a glass of lemonade. And the real reason was, no, I'll get it myself. Every single thing about my life, I'll do it myself. Everything in ministry, I'll do it myself. And God said, you're pushing away the people I sent. He said, but you are also blocking. Now, this is for people who have been abandoned. When you refuse those that God has sent, when you refuse the service they're trying to give you or the act of kindness, you're blocking their blessings. You're blocking them from being able to sow into you in whatever way, big or small, that God has positioned them there to do it. And I was blocking people. And so abandonment, it works all these places in our life until we release that place of abandonment and say, you know what? It is what it is. It happened. They were here. You loved them. And now they're gone. No hard feelings. You got to release all of that. And then you have to say, now, Father, help me to receive who you sent, because receiving them still is hard. Not going to paint a picture like, oh, you're going to wake up and everything is going to be okay. But by the help of the Holy Spirit, he will help you to receive them. And then he will also show you, you can trust this one. I sent them. You can trust that I sent them. You don't have to wonder what their motives are. I sent them. But you have to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
So abandonment, it causes a lot of things in our life. But there is a way out, and it's through the help of the Holy Spirit.
Yes, that is, as a clinician myself, and looking at abandonment, and even as you were speaking, just the similarities in abandonment experience and grief, right? Because it's a loss that we experience, and
Yes.
then we might be self-isolating and angry and
Mm-hmm. Oh,
trying to
I
mask the
went through
hurt.
that phase too.
Yeah. And trying to mask those hurts, those pains, right?
Mm-hmm.
And thinking, as you say, if I don't get anybody to help me, then they can't hurt me. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't help me, you can't hurt me. If I don't give you a space, then you can't leave me, and
That's it.
and you can't hurt me if I don't give you that space. I think that's very powerful for those who are listening, and being able to, if you're experiencing some level of abandonment, or have experienced abandonment in the past, to be able to get in a place where that's going to be helpful to you.
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Dr. LaTrice talked about, you know, the Holy Spirit. But if you don't feel like you can engage the Holy Spirit on your own to be able to be in fellowship with others that can help you with that,
Yes. Yes.
counseling, pastoral counseling, Christian counseling, or a professional therapist that is a Christian as well, to be able
Yes.
to get the resources that you need to walk through those places. So as just as Dr. LaTrice said, you don't want to push away the people that have been sent into your life to help you through your healing process, because
Yes.
you're so stuck in the hurts of the past, and you just kind of get stuck there, and then your life isn't moving forward. And so I think that is such a powerful testament to where you are today, right?
Yes. Very powerful. I'm
Yes.
receiving the people God has sent now. And
Yes.
he has sent some amazing men and women of God who are very honorable, you know, very they're submitted in a holy way, you know, in a righteous way. They're not here with underlying motives or attempting to, you know, divide anything, but here to serve, you know, and their first submission and their first service is to God. And so that's who he is sent now. And it's a healing experience for me.
Yes, so that is so powerful. Tell us to, we're gonna shift a little bit. So tell
Okay.
us about how you became the best-selling author of 12. See, this is what I want to know personally. I mean, the audience, yeah, I want you to know this too, but I want to know.
So let me tell you, now first of all, I don't have any special tips, tools, or tricks to become a best-selling author. However, I will first have to say one of my greatest friends and mentors, her name is Miss Sabrina Frazier. Her company is Bridges and Channels LLC. She mentored me in the publishing of my second book. That was my first bestseller. She mentored me. She taught me the full process of publishing. And she taught me how to monitor my books to see what the status is. So here's what I've learned is that most people probably have hit the bestsellers list, but they don't know it. They don't know it because they did not know that once your book is launched, make sure you're watching the ranking status in the first few hours, in the first few days, because that's normally when it will happen for most people. You know, some people, they stay on the list for weeks and weeks and weeks, but some of us, we get a few hours, we get a few days, but we still make it there. And so I teach my clients, hey, go check your ranking status, and I will do that for them. So listen, if you're a new author and you're published on Amazon or Barnes and Noble or wherever, go and look at their ranking status right after you're published and just watch it. It changes every hour. And you'll see your numbers. The top 100 are what they call bestsellers lists. Now, here's a trick for Amazon. Amazon has multiple lists. So you'll see ranking status. Well, click inside of there. Click that link right there inside of there, and it'll take you to hot new releases and most wished for, and just all of these different lists. And you might find your book on a bestsellers list that you didn't even know existed. I didn't know until Sabrina taught me all of this. And so now I will say this, it is key to promote your book.
Yes.
So one thing she taught me is that leading up to the release of your book, just share some nuggets, not the whole book, some quotes, you know, some little, what do they call them, sound bites, and get people interested. Let people know. Don't be afraid to let people know that you're writing a book, that you're working on something, because by the time it releases, everybody's ready. And they're like, okay, I need to get this. And so that's one way that you can ensure that your sales will go up, you know, because people are interested, people are waiting. But you just have to know where to look and when to look, and be mindful that, okay, I may not stay on the list for weeks and weeks, or I may, but there is a moment that I don't want to miss, because, and now it's a little tedious to keep checking every hour, but the numbers, especially on Amazon, they change every hour. And so you could be at 8:59 and not be on the best sales list, and at 9 o'clock you show up, because in that last hour your sales went up, because best-selling numbers are based on sales during the hour.
That's so awesome.
I don't want anybody to think that best-selling means, oh, I'm gonna be a multi-millionaire. You might. Now, I'm not saying God can't do it, because I know people who have made tens and thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars with their books. However, if you don't, using the fact that you become a best-selling author, it becomes something of interest to people. And so it piques the curiosity of people. And they say, okay, well, let me go read this to see what's in this. And then other people like you, Dr. Turner, you say, well, how did you do that? And so it piques this interest and gives me an opportunity to say, okay, this is what's really happening. That's the behind the scenes things that if you don't know and nobody tells you, you'll never know. But it's been by the grace of God that every book I've written since book number 2 has been a best-selling list, Amazon bestseller. How did I know that it was international? Because I went to go look at my sales report. Authors, listen to me, look at your sales report. And it'll tell you what countries are buying your book. And I have more international readers than I do in the United States.
That is so amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes,
That's
you're
some
welcome.
amazing information for those who are potentially writing a book and maybe they want to connect with you. Um, maybe they want to connect
Absolutely.
with you in writing their books, right?
Yes, absolutely. Come on over to Living with More. We would love to have you.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. We will make sure that that information is posted, and so you'll be able to connect with Pastor Dr. LaTrice Williams in order to potentially move forward with your writing and under her publishing company. So that
Yes,
would
would
be
love to
amazing.
work with you. Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
Okay, so tell me, speak to our young people that may be aspiring leaders, maybe in ministry, maybe even in the marketplace, because you are both. And
Yes.
so can you speak to our leaders? What words of wisdom would you share with those?
So I have 3 things that I think will be that will benefit you, whether you're a ministry or a marketplace. The first thing is the ministry of presence is sometimes more valuable than anything else. A person knowing that you are available to them, that you are open and willing to listen to them, to hear them, or even to just be in a space with them is sometimes more valuable than, us calling and we're praying for hours and we're, giving and what do you need? Sometimes they just need us to be present. That's ministry or marketplace. I literally have just walked this out this week. Had a worker who just needed me to listen.
Yeah.
And once I listened, I literally hugged this worker in the marketplace. I hugged her. I kissed on her forehead. I said, listen, you are doing a wonderful job. And she just needed the reassurance. My presence, she said, God meant for you to come in here. Same thing for ministry. People, if you're going to lead in ministry, people need you. They need to know you're available. They need to be able to see you. They need to be able to, kind of have some level of I can touch you when I need you. The second thing I would say is when the person is not okay, neither is the prophet, the pastor, the teacher, the evangelist, because they're the same person. But if the person, if the woman LaTrice is not okay, then Apostle LaTrice is not okay either. If the woman LaTrice is not okay, then senior business operations manager in for the state is not okay, because whatever's happening in my life is flowing over into ministry and into that work life. And even if you still are able to perform, guess what? You still have to deal with whatever's happening on the inside of you. And so remember that if the person is not okay, you won't get the best of who they are in whatever role they're in. And so just remember that goes along with presence.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I would say is lead with a holistic approach. Have a genuine concern for the life and the well-being of the people you lead, spiritually and naturally. Can you solve all of their problems? No. Are you the answer to every single thing in their life? No. And be okay with that. But understand that people need to know they have a leader who is genuinely concerned and who will help them to walk through, different areas of their life if they're able to, and know that you're doing it from a genuine place. I'm not just doing it so you can get my work done. I'm not just doing it so you can show up to this ministry assignment. No, I'm doing it because I want you to be whole. I want you to be well. I want you to be able to do what you're assigned to do, because when you do what you do well, God gets the glory.
Yes.
And so we've got to lead with the holistic. And then I also will say this: develop tough skin, but don't have a hard heart. Ministry and marketship and leadership, it comes with its challenges. It comes with betrayal, it comes with hurt, it comes with wounds, but it also comes with victories. Develop tough skin, but don't have a hard heart. If you harden your heart, then you'll miss out on all the beautiful moments, all of the wonderful people, all of the good things that come from leadership. But you have to develop thick skin so that you can war through and work through the hard times, so that you can get to the victory, so you can get to the good times, the wins that we always talk about. I'm working on a win. You have to be able to keep working through it. So sometimes you got to have tough skin. Sometimes and having tough skin does not mean you don't deal with your issues. It just simply means, hey, I'm not going to allow anything that comes at me to stop me. I may have to navigate what comes toward me, but I'm not going to allow it to stop me. So those are the things I would say for new leaders and seasoned leaders, because sometimes we need a reminder.
Yes, no,
Yeah.
that is some really awesome advice to be able to share with those leaders that are in ministry or in the marketplace. So final words. Anything coming up? And I know I've seen Move on. So can you tell the people a little bit more about Move and what's happening?
So Move is called, well, it is called Move. It's a virtual empowerment summit. Move means moving on victoriously empowered. And the thought that God gave me is that it's one thing to move on. It's another thing to move on in victory. Mm-hmm. To not be saddled by old things, old hurts, past victory. Sometimes victory will get us stuck in a place. We don't want to move because I'm winning right here, but God has more. And so Move is a virtual empowerment summit. It's only about 2.5 hours long. So if you have time on March the 8th, that's when it's coming up. Registration is open. All the information is on my social media platforms everywhere. Join us and hear what God is going to say about moving on, being victorious, being empowered in the moves that you have to make. Have some great speakers who are going to join me, Dr. Darius Jeter, Mr. Robert Crawford, Dr. Joshua Smith. And so it's going to be powerful. Move is meant to do just that, empower you. It's meant to push you. It's meant to give you some reigniting of the fire for your visions and your dreams and your goals. And so if you jump in the room with us, I can guarantee you that God is going to meet you there. And you're going to get something from the Lord to push you into not just the next, but push you in whatever you're supposed to be doing right now.
Yes. Well, yeah. So many awesome things that are happening just in this year. Just amazing things that are happening, and I hear just just the intricacy of the work that God is allowing you to do in various places, and so we are so excited to see up and coming things that are coming out. And please check out LaTrice's websites. All the information is posted. Please make a plan for March the 8th to join LaTrice with Move. And I just want to give a brief recap of some things that Pastor LaTrice, Dr. LaTrice has shared with us. And she talked about the being present and what being present, being mindful. And so we want to encourage the audience, the listeners, to be present, the ministry of presence with people, being mindfully present there with people, with your children, and just the impact of that. In addition to that, recognizing if that person is not okay, and I'll add, even if you're not okay, right? If you're not okay, it's not okay. And so to be able to get whatever assistance you need in order for you to be okay, whether it's a family member or a child that needs to be okay, and not just ignoring that it's not okay. Ignoring it is not okay. Going to get whatever help you need from whomever you need to receive it from, going to get that. And then I love the holistic approach because yes, we need to be holistic, our mental, our physical, our emotion, our spiritual, all of those pieces need to be enhanced. We need to be enhanced in all of those areas of our lives, and we cannot afford to be so spiritually that we're no earthly good. We can't afford to be physically fit and not have our spiritual walk aligned. We can't afford to our mental not be in the right frame, and then we're in the church and we're crying and I'm stuck in grief. because I won't go and get maybe some mental health counseling that I really need. So just the holistic approach and make, we are tripart beings. And so we
Yes,
need the whole piece, and we need to
that's
make
it.
sure we are holistically whole. And then I like that developing tough skin. And I know she talked without the hard heart, but I'll say with the soft heart, right? So developing a tough skin and making sure that we have a soft heart as it pertains to ourselves and
Yes.
as it pertains to other people. So we need to have that. And so this has been such an amazing time. So I encourage you listeners to share the podcast with those who you may know that have experienced maybe abandonment, maybe rejection, maybe they're going through a divorce right now, maybe maybe they've had some hurt within their ministry setting. Whatever it is, I so encourage you to share this podcast with them and allow it to be an encouragement to them. And so I ask you to share, subscribe, to like the podcast. We are so grateful to have you here, Dr. LaTrice. So grateful to have you. Thank you for being so transparent in what you shared today and being so vulnerable in what you shared with this audience. I know it has been a blessing to me, so I know that it has been a blessing to those who are listening. So thank you, listeners, so much. Again, don't forget to subscribe. Please leave a review on the podcast. Please share with your loved ones that may be experiencing some of what has been discussed here today. We look forward to seeing you again soon. God bless you all. Bye now.